these customers started coming up out of nowhere. And now we're talking about $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000, and the biggest one, $10,000. This guy was straight stealing from people. He was a crook, a criminal. Try to reach out many times to try to confront him about this, just to try to get the right story. Instead, I got down to it, got evidence, talked to every single customer. The biggest one was the $10,000 one. It was a local person. He was promised that he could buy down the interest rate from like a 6.75 to an interest rate that does not even exist, something in the 5% range. And the guy met up with this person and bought a cashier's check in his name and gave it to this person. $10,000. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Facts of Life podcast. And I'll be your host today, John Doan. Just like every other episode, the acronym L.I.F E will mean something different. Let's start with L. Today, I really want to talk about something that's happened very recently, very close to my heart. Yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity on my podcast to really express how I feel about this. Today's L will be about liars. If you've been following along, then you would probably know by now that I'm a mortgage lender. We provide mortgage loans to buyers and homeowners who need financing. And that's not what I'm talking about today. What I am going to talk about is hiring and having teammates, employees, or whatnot that you can trust. Well, in this episode, I'm going to talk about a big fat liar. And I'm not going to throw out names, right, for this episode, but I will give you some really great detail about what's going on here. This is somebody that I've known for, I don't know, almost 20 years. I haven't known him particularly or have followed up or had a relationship with him for 20 years, but we worked together almost 20 years ago. And during that time frame, when I was running a mortgage team, he was one of my trusted, great employees that was, highly productive. And he was a good guy, had a family, kids, all that stuff. Everything seemed to be great. Well, here we are, fast forward almost 20 years later. And, we were on LinkedIn and I shot him a message, see what he was doing. He responded and he was also looking for some work. So we started chit-chatting and I met him up. And everything that he was telling me about seemed pretty good. It seemed like he was still producing. It seemed like he would be a really good fit for my organization or my team. And boy, was I freaking wrong. Let's just say that I hired him. I guess there was a lot of red flags that I was too busy to notice. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe I didn't want to notice. Maybe I was oblivious. And that's my fault, right? I had really good, long teammates here who told me straight up, like, John, something's weird. This doesn't make sense. But, we were going through a time period. We were so busy that I didn't pay enough attention. And with that, I do regret. So what was happening is, as a licensed loan originator in the mortgage business, we're taking phone calls all day. People are calling us. They're looking for financing, whether it's a refinance, they're looking to get cash out of their homes, or they're trying to buy properties. That's what we do. This is who we talk to. I spent a lot of money on advertising. We got a lot of referrals from trusted people. And in this particular case, he was not on the phone very much, not using company phone line or technology for that matter. And I guess I failed to observe that he had two cell phones. Kind of weird, right? Who has two cell phones? I mean, a lot of people do, depending on what you do for a living. You may have a personal cell phone and one that work provides for you. Well, I don't provide cell phones, right? We don't need to. We use our mobile devices. We have an app that we use that's, all tied into work. And therefore, you don't need a second device. So that was a little strange. Another strange thing was he wasn't here very often as time went on, right? And then his production was really low. And I had several talks with him. I just thought that, hey, he needs to get on up. And every time that we had a talk, it was either about getting divorced or having issues with his kids or family. And that, so I was being empathetic, right? I'm a dad. I have 4 kids. People go through rough patches, but this patch really lasted longer than it should have. So that's when I was getting really peculiar. Again, this didn't last a whole long time. We're talking about months, approximately. I think it was about 5 months total time frame, or 5 months really too long. However, it all started with getting a phone call where a customer had called and gotten a hold of me and said that this individual asked them to send them a Venmo for a certain amount of money. In this case, it was like $800. And that really, piqued my attention. I was like, what is this for? So, of course, I brought this person in and I talked to him. And he goes, oh, there was a big problem. She needed to pay for an appraisal that was $800, but her credit card wouldn't go through. So she was getting so frustrated that I just had her Venmo me the money, and then I paid for her credit card. And I said, nope, that is not allowed because number one, you never paid for the appraisal, which means you kept her money, right? And in our business, it's very compliant. We are not allowed to accept cash or money or electronic payments from any customers at all. It's not allowed. So, of course, I had to let him go on the spot. I said, that's a big no-no. That is not acceptable in my organization. Everybody here knows that. He should too. He's been doing this for 20 years. He knows the rules and the regulations. Well, within a, 2, 3, 4 week cycle, my goodness, these customers started coming up out of nowhere. And now we're talking about $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000, and the biggest one, $10,000. This guy was straight stealing from people, okay? He was a crook, a criminal. Try to reach out many times to try to confront him about this, just to try to get the right story. Instead, I got down to it, got evidence, talked to every single customer, and yeah, he was legitimately a crook. I was so shocked. I think part of it too is I felt really disappointed in myself for not seeing this and not catching it and letting it get to this point here. Shame on me. But with every single issue or every single experience, whether good or bad that you go through, you learn from it. And so never again. Okay, never again. That leads me to the next part of our episode here, the I in life. Impact. Who did this crook impact? Well, first and foremost, it impacted me and my organization and my family, right? If this guy was doing illegal activities and I didn't catch it the way that I did and open up that research to really look into this to find out what was going on, who knows what would have happened? People would have been angry. Maybe they would have given us bad reviews on Google, which I hate. That is a big one for me. We work so hard for our Google reviews, but when people are pissed, that's like one of the first places they go. How about our licensing? How about everyone on my team? How about people on my team trying to feed their families? And then, first and foremost, just the victims, I feel really bad. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I feel terrible saying this. However, when someone asks you to send them money, why would you do it? Venmo, Zelle, just why would you send someone money? This guy had a silk tongue, whatever he was telling people, and oh boy, he was saying all different kinds of things. He was saying things like, send me $1,000 and, I'll get my company to reduce the fees so that you pay less money. Or, hey, your interest rate is 6.75 today, but if you send me $5,000, I'll make sure that we lock it in at 6%, for example. Just a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies, just a lot of untruthful promises that never existed to start with. And people fell for it. It baffles me to see how many people would actually send money that's non-returnable, non-refundable, right? Like when you say someone Venmo or Zelle, it's cash. Like you're not getting it back. You can't dispute it. It's buyer beware, right? Like you can't get that money back. You can't dispute it at all. There's no protection. So why would you do that? The biggest one was the $10,000 one. It was a local person. And, he was promised that he could buy down the interest rate from like a 6.75 to an interest rate that does not even exist, something in the 5% range. And the guy met up with this person. And this was after he already left our establishment, by the way, and bought a cashier's check in his name and gave it to this person, $10,000. That is just unbelievable to me. I just can't fathom how someone would even be comfortable cutting a cashier's check for that amount of money without verifying, who they are. They met at a coffee shop. Okay? It wasn't at a place of business. So I feel bad saying all this, but it's true. This is a problem for the victims, right? Now they're lost out. They lost money. They may have been promised things that they were never, ever going to get. And, the impact on me is, of course, I had to do the right thing. I refunded money to all these people. I run a legitimate business. We do pretty well. Lights on, bills paid, and I'm not going to lose out because of, it's a larger amount of money, but call for what it is, $10, $15, $20,000. I'm going to protect my reputation, and I'm going to protect my team, and I'm going to protect the victims or these homeowners or buyers that were out there getting swindled, right? Not okay with me. There's not a cost to that to protect my reputation. And so, we're talking about impact. So, financially, that impacted me a whole lot. It cost a lot of money. It took a lot of time, hours of research and digging and verifying and phone calls. And with that said, with the financial loss that I had and the impact that it had on me or the possible impact on my organization and my team, that brings me to the F in life. And today, particularly to you, to this person, F you. Okay, that's what I have to say. So what am I doing about it? I say F you because you are messing with my industry, my business, my family, my team, people that I care about, and my customers, my reputation. And so for that, again, I say F you. All right? What am I going to do about it? Because, I have been thinking about this really long and hard. And it's still crazy to me that I sit here and I tell this story or I'm talking about what has happened here, and yet I still feel bad. I feel bad for wanting to do these things. That doesn't matter though, right? Who cares if I've known him almost 20 years? I mean, it really taught me that I didn't know him much, okay? And that trust is really hard to earn. Whether you know somebody or not, you really don't know. This guy probably had a drug problem. This guy was a criminal. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, after finding out everything, found out that he stole from his mom, found out that he was living with a girl. So sad. She even reached out to us because this was his workplace, but he swindled a girl that was a single mother. He was living at her place for a while, from what I understand. Got her to take out a $50,000 personal loan, and she gave it to him. I wonder what he was feeding her or telling her. And I feel so bad, that she was impacted, that she was a victim as well, and that she was lied to. But obviously, the guy's ghosting her. She will not recover her $50,000. And with that, I say again, the pain that you endure on other people for whatever your problem is that you have. Had my attorneys draw up a cease and desist so that he wouldn't call any more of our customers. But, just thinking about it, a cease and desist, it's a formal and legal notification that says don't reach out to anybody else that's ever been a part of our company, customers, teammates, whomever. But do you think he really gives a shit if this guy's like out there just stealing money from people? He stole money from his mom, right? And, the next step was, of course, filing, a complaint against his license. And you know what? It really sucks. I mean, I'm just following through. It's been a couple weeks, but what I'm being told is that here I am, the employer, and I am making complaints against his mortgage license. However, even on the licensing side, right, there has to be multiple complaints or there has to be a pattern for them to really execute. That bums me out. So now it leads me to the last part, which I have no choice but to do. It's to file a police report. This guy's a criminal. He's a crook. I got to take him off the streets. I have to protect home buyers and homeowners and other lenders and people in our community, which is not huge. Mortgage industry is big, but, when you look at it from, a network of other businesses and companies and industries, it's not, right? And the reputation is small. News travels quickly. I got to do what I got to do. And, that leads me into the last part of our podcast today, which is the E in life, which is enough. Like enough, dude. What are you doing? Why are you hurting people? Why are you out there stealing from your mom? Why are you stealing from people that never did anything from you? But I guess, you know what? Here I am saying enough is enough. However, I don't know his problem. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know if his brain is even in the right mental capacity to even recognize what he's doing. So, with that said, what I want to say today on my podcast has nothing to do with my business. Going through this makes me feel like I have a responsibility, okay, out there, and I would love to help. I'm not talking about this particular person, but I would want to hear your comments. I want to hear your messages if you want to reach out. I want to know if you've been a victim of financial crimes like this, where you have been ripped off, or if you've sent money to people digitally and they've ghosted you. I want to know about that. I want to help people. This is not okay. It pisses me off, and I want to take these guys down. You know, it's something that I want to do to show my kids, my community, my team, my people that I take this shit serious and that we don't mess around. With that said, that's the end of our podcast today. Sorry if, I got a little deep there on some of these things, but I just want to put it out there, so that other people and people watch our podcast are aware. Okay. Please like, subscribe, please comment, or reach out if you are a victim. I want to hear about it. I want to know what happened to you. I want to know what your story is. With that said, thank you so much for joining us today with the Facts of Life podcast by me, John Doan. See you later.